Hello and welcome to the 2017 inbound sales benchmarking results, and also where we'll be having a look at the contact centres that have made it into our top 10 for 2017. What we're going to do today is, well, firstly, thank you everyone for coming along today. We've had a really good response to the webinar that we're running and to some of the results that we'll be showing today. We'll be exploring the results of the benchmark. We'll be having a look at who has made it into the top 10 today. And then we'll be spending some time really looking at what is it that actually separates those customer experiences or those conversations which, when we run them up or assess them against our benchmark, what is the difference between what the top 10 are doing and the rest. In addition to me being here today, I'd also like to introduce Josh Griffiths, who's come along from NIB to talk to us today as well. Josh, would you just like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, my name's Josh Griffiths. I'm the sales manager in the contact centre at NIB Health Funds, and I'm really excited to see these results today and help share any best practice that we have.
Cool. Thank you, Josh. We'll be coming back to Josh quite regularly throughout the webinar. So what I thought I'd do to kick us off today, I should also say, if you've got any questions, then please fire those questions throughout the webinar. We will have some time at the end for some questions. We'd like to, we're more than happy to stop and answer a question as we go through where it's relevant. So if you see in your control panel and you roll over it, you'll see that there is a Q&A section. If you type questions into that Q&A section, then I'll be able to see them and we'll be able to make sure that we answer them. If we don't get to all of the questions that you asked today on the webinar, then we'll make sure that we follow up and absolutely publish the answers to any questions that you ask. Okay, so a little bit about how we actually arrive at the data. I know some of you on the call will be very familiar with it. What we did this year is we actually phoned 52 different inbound sales contact centres across most of the big, what you would call business to consumer type brands in the country. And what we do is when we actually make the call, we have what we might call as Grist customers who are posing as a warm sales lead, and they might be coming into your contact centre saying something like, I'm thinking about switching my health insurance, or I'm not that happy with my current bank, or I'd like to think about whether you can offer me something better for my gas and electricity. So it's just important to note that we're actually posing as quite a warm inbound sales lead. So when you're looking at some of this data, just keep in mind that we're not confrontational or argumentative as a customer. We pretty much act as warm leads that if you do the right thing by us, then we'll be, definitely making some buying signs as we go through. Once, while the call's been made, then our benchmarking analysts assess each call against a framework of around 60 behavioural criteria. This can change a little bit depending on the benchmark that we're using. And what this benchmark is IP that we've developed over a long period of time of working with organisations to really look at improving the customer experience and also the financial outcomes and conversion. The companies and particularly the industries that we've looked at, energy, health insurance, home and motor insurance, home loans in the banking sector, ISPs, mobiles. We've also looked at savings and transactional accounts and also sampled some superannuation providers as well. Let's have also there I've got on the side of the screen, we won't go through that in detail because there's a lot of companies there. We will make the pack available so you can have a look through at who we've actually looked at. Okay, so without any more ado, let's actually look at the results. And given that Josh is here, then it'll be probably no surprise that this year NIB has come in as the #1 with a score of 62% in our benchmark. So this is a fantastic effort from NIB. NIB did make it into the top 10 last year as they were lifting their results. They were 9th last year, and it's an absolute tremendous effort for them to lift from ninth place into first place. And so we're going to delve a lot more into what it is that has helped NIB on such a remarkable journey. And what we also want to have a look at, it's great to be talking about that. We think that they've got a better result when we assess it against the benchmark, but we're also going to have a look at what that means for outright performance as well. Okay, let's have a look at 2 to 5. So UE, this is the first time that UE has made it into the top 10. So big congratulations to UE. NRMA, another great effort. They were 10th in our top 10 last year and have now come in third place. CTM, Compare the Market, and HCF, a big welcome back to you guys. You've been regulars in the top 10 over the past few years. So magnificent effort and a consistent performance from you guys as well. If we delve down into 6 to 10, then we can see that Bupa is here again. They were in the top 10 at 8th last year, so they've come up to 6th. iSelect Energy, this is the first time that they've ever made the top 10. And also it's the first time that an energy company has ever made it into the top 10, because traditionally the energy industry hasn't performed well in this benchmark. RAC, big congratulations to RAC. They've worked really hard. They've got themselves into the top 10 for the first time, the same as Allianz as well. And then a big, once again, welcome back to iSelect Health Insurance, who has been a pretty regular player in the top 10 over the last couple of years. But Josh, a little bit over to you. Josh, how are you feeling, and how have people responded to the news that, because we did give you a little bit of a heads up, so how have they responded to the news?
Yeah, everyone's really excited here. We obviously have saw our results a few years ago, and where we weren't even in the top 10, and have embarked on a bit of a journey to improve and focus, and I'll talk about some of those changes a bit later. But the team are really excited to reach that number 1 spot, and yeah, there's a lot of hard work that had gone into that.
Fantastic. So what we'll now do is just slice and dice the data a little bit to give you some various different views of what it is that the insights that we can gain from this work. So firstly, I just wanted to show you an industry comparison. And once again, the health insurance industry has come in as the number 1 industry that we benchmark. So based on the calls that we make to the inbound contact centres of all the different industries, there is quite a marked difference in the quality and the engagement of the actual conversations that we're having with the health insurance providers. Josh, have you got any particular thoughts as to why you think health insurance is always at the top of our benchmark? Yeah,
look, for me, I think you use the word engagement there. I think with health insurance, naturally, your consultant will engage with the customer. Health's obviously something close to everyone, and something that has a lot of meaning for people, and maybe more so than some of the other areas around, whether it's your car insurance or your electricity that we saw. I think it doesn't mean that it's not possible on any type of sales call, but I think health insurance is probably more naturally engaging based on the content.
Thanks, Josh. Excellent. What I'll show you now is just where the other industries are actually sitting. Probably the big call out here is, Josh, you were just saying that you think health insurance is I guess it's a product that you feel like you can engage a customer around. Well, it's interesting that, home loans and basic banking products, which are, I would think, particularly around home loans, are things that you could absolutely have a really genuinely engaging conversation about the customer's needs. They're actually sitting down the bottom, and I think this is a real wake up for the banks, is that they could do a lot of work in the area of improving the quality of the conversation. But big call out that I will say here is the energy retailers, who, while they're third and is a little way off the health insurance industry, it's been a massive pickup in that industry, which was regularly down the bottom when we compared it to all other industries. And it's really showing that there's a real shift in that energy industry to move away from straight out commoditized selling based on price, which sort of led to door knocking and all sorts of mis-selling in that industry, that they're really trying to lift the brand value that they have around their products and services. So big call out to energy industry, and well done as well. And also well done to both the general insurance industry and the health insurance industry for the work that they've done. Okay, quick one on the next one is to just have a look at the overall scores. So the top 10, the average of the top 10 overall scores is 56%, and the average of everyone else is 42.3%. Now, while that might not look like a massive difference, it's important to understand how the benchmark is structured, and just to know that you can basically get around 40% by doing what we would call just the absolute basics, or the tickets to play. That is basically, you can get 40 cents if you say that you will somewhat help me. If you're not absolutely rude to me and you don't have a terrible tone and manner, then you can do some of the basics that will get you around 40%. To start pushing up into the high 50s and getting up towards the 60s means that you really do need to start to be pushing into the more sophisticated engagement techniques and also the more sophisticated sales techniques. And when we have a look at NIB's results, we'll show you how big a difference in outputs, a 10 to 15% lift in benchmark scores can actually make. Just a reminder, if you've got any questions as we go through, then please use the Q&A tab and fire through some questions, and we'll endeavour to answer them as we can. Okay, now let's just do another slice. It's not always easy to put certain behaviours into particular categories, but what we've done here is just divided the categories, that are the actual criteria, behavioural criteria that are in the benchmark, into those that we'd see as more around engagement, which you might call sort of relationship skills, or a word that I hate a lot of the time is used is soft skills. So you'll see here that there's a 11% difference between the top 10's ability to have an engaging conversation with the customer and everyone else. And then the next slice is to have a look at the difference in the acquisition skills. So these are what you might traditionally call the sales skills, which are traditionally trained. And you'll see here that there's actually over a 17% point difference between sales skills of the top 10 and everyone else. The other thing that I'd point out here is, though, there is still massive opportunities within the top 10 to keep getting better. And, I know Josh will, NIB won't be resting on their laurels, and there's a lot of work that can be done even for top 10 sales centres. Okay. The next slide I want to talk you through is, this is a pretty major trend that we're seeing out there in the marketplace, and it's the move from EQ, from being a subject matter expert to someone that's really good on more of the EQ skills. So if I think about selling, it wasn't that long ago, or I guess for some people that are on this call, it probably is a long time ago, but 20 to 10, 20, 30 years ago, part of being a good salesperson was to just really have a lot of knowledge, and information wasn't readily available. Sales organisations used to closely guard their collateral so it didn't fall into the hands of opposition salespeople, and you could largely achieve a certain level of sales performance by just being a real subject matter expert. What we're really seeing now is that the internet is really, and the web is really, I guess, throwing that out the window. And as you would all know, there are times now when you're talking to customers who are better informed about your products and services, and also the competitors' product services, than what you are. And as a result, what we're really seeing is the difference between a great sales and customer outcome now is much more about whether you're treating your customers as people, because your products are now more commoditized and information is very readily available. So the real differentiator now that we need to be working on is not the fact that you've got information. It's more about whether you can understand what the customer's actually looking for, and then you can actually make the connection between how your product works and what the customer's actually looking to achieve. We'll delve into this a little bit more by now going right down to some of the specific criteria that we measure that speak really to this difference between being sort of more transactional and subject matter focused between being more humanistic and engagement focused. Sorry, I've just gone once. Whoops, sorry, I'll just go back a little bit. Look, I'll bring all these up for you now. But so seek to engage. This is where early on in a conversation, the actual consultant proactively looks to engage the customer in a conversation that is around something that the customer's actually mentioned. So it could be that, you know, we're just about to buy a house. Well, there's an obvious point where we can engage the customer. Someone that would be quite concerned about being confused about whether they're entitled to receive benefits from a particular health provider. So you'll see there 34% in the top 10. So lots of work to be done by the top 10, but definitely a long way ahead of everyone else. You know, this one always gets me. How simple is it to note a customer's name and use their name early on in a call so that we're treating them as an individual and have shown them the respect of using their names? Once again, a very simple technique that's only being used on half of the calls we made into those contact centres that didn't make the top 10. You'd see in the top 10, you'd hear your name used in a very conversational manner very early in the call, 4 out of 5 times. Introduce questioning. This is another market difference, still a huge opportunity for the top 10, only on 37% of calls, but everyone else, we're only seeing questioning being positioned as a way of helping understand the customer and get them the right product. We're only seeing that happen on 7% of cases. Great tone, once again. Now, great tone in our benchmark is a pretty hard measure to hit. We're seeing in the top 10, over 50% of calls, they're actually hitting the right tone. We would call neutral or poor tone is anything that's outside of the great tone criteria, and you'll see that we only get a great tone on around 11% of calls on those contact centres that don't make it into the top 10. Attempting the sales close, once again, there is a big difference here, but it's not surprising because if you seek to engage, you use the customer's name, you introduce questionings, and you have a great tone, then your customer is giving you much better buying signs, and it's no wonder that you'd be more likely to attempt the sale. However, there is a discipline in those top 10 centres to make sure they are asking customers whether they want to take up the product on a much higher rate. The next one and the last one to look at here is to just have a look at the, sorry, I'm just driving my screen incorrectly, is to look at specific solutions. So once again, quite a big difference here between the top 10, which at 96% of cases, top 10 contact centres will actually, rather than laying out a whole range of solutions and sort of saying, well, I don't really know what you need, you choose. The top 10 contact centres are much better at doing better questioning and then coming up with, okay, well, this is the solution that we should talk about based on your need. And now we know that there are specific industries where that can be a little difficult because of differences in advice and the regulation. However, we do see it demonstrated much better in the top 10 contact centres. Okay, let's have a quick look at another little bit of research that sits slightly outside of this top 10 benchmark, but once again really drives home what are the specific behaviours that drive value adding and allow and earn the right for someone to actually have a value adding conversation. So just a really quick insight into this. This is a major insurer. The major insurer had developed a new product that was somewhat outside of what was the traditional product set. They'd done the focus sessions. They'd said, we've got 2 million customers. In the focus sessions, 2/3 of customers say that they really like this product. How good is this going to be? We just need to develop it and give it to our frontline sales force in the contact centre, and we'll have the product walking off the shelf. And I'm probably here, you're already going, I know it's not that easy. And of course, it wasn't that easy. And what they were finding is that they were just really struggling to sell this particular product. So the insurer gave us a large sample of successful sales outcomes and a large sample of unsuccessful sales outcomes, and we benchmarked them all, and with a real focus to looking at what were the behaviours that were demonstrated differently on the successful outcomes to the unsuccessful outcomes. And what I'd like to do is I'll just take you through some of the data. And it's interesting to note that a lot of these behaviours, the other thing I should say is that the calls that we were benchmarking here were inbound service calls on which the agents or consultants were trying to upsell and cross-sell into this particular new product. And it's interesting to note that most of the behaviours that correlated most closely with a successful sales outcome were behaviours that happened in the first 15 or 20 seconds of the call, even though it was an inbound service call where we had to actually look after a particular customer inquiry first before earning the right. So you'll see Seek to Engage, which I spoke about before, market difference of 24.8% between that behaviour being demonstrated on a successful sales outcome as to unsuccessful. Second one, empathised, enthused about the situation. So customer might have been ringing in to say, look, I'm really upset because I've made a claim and that claim doesn't seem to be being paid to the value that I was thinking. This has been very quickly being able to empathise with that customer's situation and respond to that demonstrated emotion. And then that's the next one is to actually pick up. The next one is to respond very directly. So you see there's a very big difference. On successful sales outcome, the actual consultant has responded directly to the displayed emotion of the customer. Linking or being able to provide a good segue into a cross-sell conversation by being able to say something like, look, you mentioned earlier, I think we can really help you out with that. Do you mind if we have a conversation? So even though that skill was only demonstrated 21% of times on successful sales outcomes, still a remarkable difference to the unsuccessful ones. Asking questions to uncover needs around the secondary product. It won't be any surprise that there was a big difference there. But the segue that I just spoke about earns you the right to get into that questioning for the secondary product. And then the last one was a big difference in the ability to actually seek the customer's commitment and actually ask for the sale. So really interesting piece of research, which is really starting to help us understand, what are some of the changing preferences in the customer base? And what are some of those really specific behaviours that when you look at the difference between successful and unsuccessful outcomes, which ones correlate more closely with the successful sales outcome? Okay, what we're now going to do is introduce Josh. Sorry, I've already introduced Josh, but get Josh to have a talk to us about what it is that they've done that's allowed them to become number one contact centre, inbound contact centre, as measured by our inbound sales benchmark. So, Josh, could you just start by just talking a little bit about why you set out on this journey and then talk to the performance slide that we've got on the screen?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Peter. So we've been a big believer in engagement type selling for many years, and one of the biggest problems that we have had is getting traction and consistency with that and with our sales workforce. But so we've sort of embarked on a bit of a program of work and a change of culture and ways that we've done that over the last 18 months, really. And the slide you're seeing now demonstrates when we have become successful with that and have had better traction with our engagement and our focusing on empathy and having a really human conversation with customers, that our bottom line results, our sales or the output that we would see, has significantly increased over the past 2 years, which, for us proves out the theory around, if we get the input right, then the output will come. And we've certainly felt the reward from that. And, you could go back before 2014 and you'd see similar size bars to 15 and 14 where we just hadn't had that traction, but we've started to get it right now, and we are definitely seeing great returns for being successful with this type of selling.
And I'll just point out at that point that Obviously, we haven't got the actual conversion rates here because of the, I guess, commercial confidence with NIB. But what we are showing there is that, a comparative uplift of 42%, which is a magnificent effort over the 2 years. So what I'd just also like to then show here is that these are the actual benchmarking scores of NIB from 2016 to 2017. So once again, you can actually get a big lift in performance, even with an around 9 to 10% lift in the actual benchmarking scores. And I'll show you why that is in a minute when we actually show you some of the behaviours that NIB has been able to perform much, much better in. Okay, so we'll just talk those through now. Seek to engage, which we've spoken about before. They've been able to lift their performance. NIB's lifted their performance from 21% to around 47%, which is a fantastic lift. And as we were showing before, the correlation between these sort of engagement criteria or skills and performance is a very direct link. They were able to enthuse about the customer's situation and needs, so nearly doubled the rate we've got that was happening in 2016. And this is a fantastic one. Being able to respond to the customer's displayed emotion, you'll see there that's gone from 40% to 85% of the time. If you ring NIB, they will understand, they will pick up on the emotion that you're displaying, whether it's concern, whether it's annoyance, or whether it's enthusiasm, and they will then actually show you through the way they speak to you, they actually are responding to that particular emotion. So, Josh, I know you've actually only seen some of this more granular detail today, so tell me a little bit about how that makes you feel to see that.
Yeah, this was really pleasing, and it went back a year ago. We saw these results and we thought, well, this is simple stuff. This is being a human, and you talked a little bit about the bad word that is soft skills. We want to call them human skills now, and that's all it is. It's especially with health insurance, it's acknowledging someone that may be wanting to have health insurance to be covered for pregnancy and not moving on to the next question, but acknowledging that, someone's going to have a major life event and getting excited about that. So to see these results shining through in the benchmarking, I know I am, and I'm sure my team who are dialed into this webinar as well will be really excited about seeing that has made a difference.
We've never seen anyone hit that sort of number on that particular respond to customers' displayed emotion, so it's a great effort. Let's keep going through. So while these show movement, Josh and I have already discussed this, also still work to be done. Expand on the why, which is what the term we use to really drill down. Often we'll hear contact centres ask, so tell me a little bit about why you're looking for health insurance, and then basically not listen to the answer that they get. So what we're looking at here is that the agent or the consultant listens to the response of the customer in that first question and asks the second question that actually drills down. It usually is the one that gets past just the glib response that the customer might give you first up, and gets down into what is it that's really driving the customer to want a solution in this particular situation. Once again, here's another fantastic lift, is how will the customer use the product, and really being able to link the way the product works and the features to what it actually means for the customer in their particular certain circumstances. And then finally, what we have here is an agreement question, which is after you've actually presented the solution, explain to them how it will actually work for them and their lifestyle, is to really ask the customer, does that sound like the sort of solution that is what you're looking for, or some sort of question like that that really gets the customer to make, I guess, close the sale emotionally, even if we have to go through a lot of T's and C's and close out some of the compliance aspects. So, Josh, once again, comments on that page?
Yeah, so looking at expanding on the why, that obviously is still a huge opportunity for us to look at, but even to get to the 20%, we've found that incredibly hard to coach and lead. You need a consultant that can think on their feet and come up with that next question. And we find so many consultants, you know, they have their repertoire, they have their 10 questions that they can use for their needs analysis, but this has required a lot of deeper thinking and asking our guys to go with the flow and see where their conversation takes them. So it has got some traction, which is fantastic and pleasing to see, but we know there's a lot more work there, and the benefit of achieving a higher result here will really play out further in our results and other places in the benchmarking. I think around usage and for the customer's lifestyle and also an agreement question, they become really easy if you have done some good questioning early on that is not transactional related, but it is about a solution for a problem that the customer might have that we're trying to solve rather than selling them a product. So yeah, some good results there, but an opportunity to do more.
Oh, excellent. Let's have a Josh. I'll get you now. Just you know, we've been into some very granular detail here. Can you just talk a little bit now about exactly what it is that you did to go on this journey to achieve the results? You've already started speaking a little bit about the hard work that you did, but take us through a little bit more, please.
Yeah, so look, the first step and what we've been looking to do is change our sales culture. We're trying to change a very transactional product and price-based type conversation into this emotional needs discovery, problem-solving solution for the customer. And we spent a few years invested into that and weren't getting the traction, as I mentioned earlier. And a lot of that was to do with not having the right people that were able to have these type of conversations that we were looking for. So we've embarked on a bit of a program of work over the last 18 months to change that culture. And part of that is change to our recruitment process. We no longer look for experience or technical skills from a sales background, but we're looking for people who can have real life human conversations that can engage, you know, throughout an assessment process that will be having a great conversation with the customer. So, you know, we're hiring people that have backgrounds in journalism or people that deal with customers or work in teams that can have those real life conversations. So that's been one success for us. We've just made sure that these type of conversations have become everything of what we do. We live and breathe it. We make this our main focus. And this includes very, very strong leaders who have been part of this and believed in it and been able to implement some of the initiatives and tactics that we've put in place. The other thing we've done is protected this culture as well. So people that haven't fit in, and we've always looked at the sales environments traditionally about you know, measuring the outputs and who's getting the most sales or making the most revenue. But we've really tried to factor in a piece of our culture that if you're part of our team, we want you aligned with this type of selling, and make sure that any of our recognition and alignment within our culture exists with that. Which leads me to the second point around measuring the input. So, you know, we took the bold approach to talk less about the output, the sales result or the return or what's your conversion, and really started measuring how our people were having conversations. And this meant us developing a checklist, a lot of it around the behavioural skills that you've spoken about today. And we've spent most of that time on the engagement part. So you talked a little bit before about the acquisition side. I would say we're probably only halfway through that at the moment around where we wanted to guide and lead our people. So this is about setting what our expectations are with a behavioural conversation, a framework to operate within, certainly not scripting, but then having leaders test and listen to calls and be sure that we're achieving the intent that we're setting out to do. The key thing that's worked well for us there is a calibration with the leaders. So weekly, the leaders and myself will get together and we'll listen to a call and we'll assess it on a benchmark, a checklist around the soft skills. So we're not focusing on the compliance side of things or, you know, privacy or anything like that in these sessions. It's purely about the conversation and is it achieving the intent that we've set out to do with our sales process. So that has two great outcomes. One is that we can adjust our focus if we think that there's some key themes across the centre that need looking at around engagement, but it also ensures that all the leaders are aligned in their way of thinking with what the expectation should be. And that means that when we go out and we coach and lead our people, that there's a consistent approach across all of our teams in the contact centre.
Josh, that links to a couple of the probably the biggest trends that we're seeing that's happening in the industry is that regulation, particularly in banking, but it's also coming into many other industries, is absolutely driving organisations away from a sole focus on the outputs. We know that what we talk about, a motivation in the absence of capability, leads to a lot of unintended consequences, and in this case, potential mis-selling as well. That organisations are needing to make the shift to be more input focused. And if you're in a sales centre, the input is the behaviour. So if you can't develop your leaders to be able to understand, actually define what good looks like, and then to consistently be able to assess against that, then you really are going to find it difficult to, I guess, move into this new regime where there's less focus on the inputs and much more focus on the outputs. So, third point there, Josh, back to leadership.
Yes, good segue. So, it says lead, lead, lead here. You could put on another 72 leads after this to be the real reason why we've been successful this year. I mentioned before, I've got some super strong leaders who believe in this vision that we've had to change the way that we sell. And they have relentlessly led and coached and trained and fed back and put in so much hard work to achieve the result that we've got. So that goes beyond, seeing in the calibration and your coaching, but this is every spare moment they have. They've got a headset on, they're listening to calls and testing how that goes with the benchmarking. They're ensuring that they follow up from those calls to touch base with short, sharp follow-ups or tips and hints for their consultants to be better around how that they would be adhering to our behavioural structure that we're looking to achieve. They're running group sessions, they're providing feedback. So this has been incredibly hard work to do this, but the credit to the leaders that have done that and have really changed the way that we sell at NIB through their relentless coaching and feedback and incentivising and encouragement that they've given to their teams.
So Josh, knowing NIB and being part of the journey for a couple of years, and also when we go into all the other contact centres we work with, the first thing when we talk about is, should you be doing a little more leadership? No one ever says, no, I shouldn't be. I should be spending more time with my people. Everyone understands that it's probably the best lever you can pull to improve the capability of your team is to spend time coaching them. But we usually get told, I just don't have time. So could you talk us through how you've broken the back of that one, if you have, or how it's worked?
Sure. Look, certainly, NIB has been great in recognising this opportunity, and we will prioritise that coaching and leadership to enable us to be successful. That said, though, there are times of the year where our call volumes double for a period of a month or 2 weeks, where we just don't have capacity to be taking people off the phones and coaching them. So we have to get creative around how we do that. And as I said before, if the leader can't get an hour off the phone for the consultant, and they'll be sitting side by side next to them, coaching them along the way, or sending out tips through email or anything like that they can, to make sure that we don't go for long periods of time without touching our people and giving them advice. In fact, it'd be rare that we would go a day without some sort of interaction with our people to give them a small, sharp goal to achieve for that day, or make a small change to one of their behavioural components within their call listening. So it can't be an excuse. It's the most critical measure to getting this right. And you need people that believe in it, that will lead it, and will work hard to achieve it.
Excellent. Hey, Josh, we've got a question from Marie, who's asked, is NIB able to share its QA questionnaire or sort of some guides around the types of questions you use for scoring and rating calls?
Yeah, sure. We're happy to share some of those things around, but I'll talk you through the process, how we developed it. It basically started with this benchmarking and some of those key areas that you've listed throughout this webinar around seeking to engage and uncovering the why. So we've used them as themes, and then as a leadership team, we've interpreted what that means for our business through calibration, and then embedded that into the process. So I'm more than happy to take anyone through what we've got as far as our list goes, but I would also think there's probably opportunities for people to build it around what their either industry or product set goes with, that will work for them, and where they can best implement some of the key factors of the behavioural benchmarking.
Yeah. And just to let you know, Josh has kindly offered to put his email details into the pack. We'll send this pack around to you following this session, and Josh is more than happy to take queries or questions. So, Marie, if you want to, you can get directly in touch with Josh as well. There's another question here for you, Josh. Just how hard was it to move the focus from performance outputs to behavioural type inputs? It sounds easy, and also the question is, how did the team respond initially?
Yeah, look, it's been incredibly hard, and especially when we had the wrong people that couldn't see the benefits of this type of selling. So over time, we've sort of got there, but the hardest bit was getting the culture right. So as soon as we had enough people that believed in it and knew that this was the way forward, that culture steamrolled over the top of any old way of selling, and certainly made that change to now, to the point where we hire people and they come into our business, that they understand what our journey is, and they are caught up in the culture of this way of doing things. So that's probably been the hardest bit, is getting that snowball rolling, and then it will certainly help get that change in place.
And one of the things, just this reminded me, based on the question Marie asked there, which is, Josh, what was the first thing you did a couple of years ago when you saw ING was the #1 in our benchmark? What did you go and do?
I wanted to mention that. So yeah, one thing that we did earlier this year was similar. Sitting in my position was Lauren from ING. I think she might be dialed in again today, but we went and saw them, and she gave us some great feedback around what they're doing. And I sat with one of her consultants, and that seeking for engage, there was a great example of that I came back and shared with my team. So thank you, Lauren, for your feedback there. And also the Compare the Market guys who came first last year, I went up and saw them and talked to them about some of the things that they were doing. So I think it's great that we can share our successes and help each other with this. But yeah, big thank you to those guys.
Excellent. We'll just jump through to the next slide, Josh. Please, if you've got any more questions, then please fire them through as well. Could you just now sort of go back to the bigger picture, Josh? We've had a bit of a chat about the performance, but let's have a little bit of a chat about the impact that this has had on both your employees and your customers.
Yeah, sure. So this is more about, this definitely works. This isn't something that that people can be challenged with deciding on the path to go towards. So along our journey, you've seen the performance uplift, but in doing so, our consultants having purpose and a reason for what they're doing and aiming for a goal to be the best has helped with their engagement. So we have an engagement score that sits well above 90%. We were lucky enough to win the Best People and Culture at the Contact Centre Awards earlier this year. And when I told our guys that the result that we were #1, the engagement and the cheering and the celebration that they felt from feeling like they've contributed to this is fantastic. But at a granular level, each day that they're selling like this as well, it breaks up selling. You know, there's the old way of the transactional. Okay, here's the price, here's the product. Do you want to buy? And then objection handling if need be. The guys now have no day the same, where they can really have a conversation with a customer and have a chat and find out what's important to them, and they get benefit from doing that, and that keeps them engaged. And our customers as well, on the other side around results, we've seen a massive uplift in feedback that's come through proactively from the customer, where they wanted to acknowledge the experience that they have, and verbatim feedback that says this is different to anywhere else they've experienced, and this is the reason that they bought from us, is because someone spent time with them to understand their needs. So, you know, we've seen great success all around by implementing and being successful in this journey.
Fantastic. Josh, we've got another question from Brad. What was the number one toughest behavioural shift to get the front line to shift in your journey?
Yeah, I think it's probably the piece I talked on earlier around being able to think on their feet when they're uncovering those needs. So, you know, everyone's been really good at setting the call up and seeking to engage early on and introducing questioning. But it's then when they'll open up with a question, you know, around maybe what's motivated the customer to call today, and then being able to take that to the next level to really drill down into a why that will impact them buying or not today. And I think I said before, it comes, I think, with a level of emotional intelligence to be able to have that conversation with a customer and pick up on those triggers that might be there, to be able to acknowledge them, but then think about how that's going to benefit the product that we've got to sell, will benefit that emotional reason, that why.
Yeah. Last question, Josh, from David, which is, I think you mentioned it a little bit before, is if you had to alter and rejig your rewards and recognition and incentives?
Yes, thank you for that question, because I meant to touch on it and I didn't. So absolutely we did, and something that again is probably hard to do, but we were successful. We continue to pay rewards for outcomes, so sales conversion and the number of sales, but we had some levers in there around the quality that went in, and it basically works that if your conversations and our leaders are marking calls and ranking them against this checklist, if they're at the certain level that we're expecting, you could achieve a higher bonus. But if you weren't moving towards this way of being successful in a sales conversation, then you wouldn't be able to earn as much from a sales outcome. Now, we didn't want to take everyone's bonus away, so we set a really realistic target as far as what they would need to achieve from a behavioural score. But what that did was, them knowing that it's something they had to work on, certainly encouraged them to focus on it more. And we've had some consultants that have been here for 4 and 5 years, very price and product focused, that were really being forced to make a change and try some new things. And I don't think they'll ever get to some of the level of our better consultants, but by having this metric in that you know, would de-incentivise them by not doing it, has helped change that culture as well. So yeah, we did do some of that.
Well, that's about it for time. So we're going to wrap the webinar up now. I just want to wrap up by saying, firstly, big congratulations to NIB, but to everyone that is in the top 10. There's certainly, when, you know, as we have to actually listen to these conversations, particularly our analysts, and they give us a very good view that just the conversations they have with the top 10 companies just feel a lot better, and it's backed up in our benchmarking performance as well. So congratulations to everyone that made the top 10. Thank you very much, Josh, for being part of it. Thank you, everyone else that came along to the webinar today. We will follow up by distributing the pack we have here, and also with contact details. You're welcome to contact Josh, but also welcome to contact us if we can help you out with any queries as well. We will also have a copy of the recording of this webinar. if you'd like to use it in your centres or in your sales teams, perhaps as part of a sales meeting, to play various parts of it to instigate conversations, I really encourage you to look through this pack and look at some of those critical criteria and actually go out and start rating and listening to some of your calls and having a go at assessing how do we rate with regard to some of these really critical behavioural criteria that are really leading to more engaging conversations. So thank you very, very much. Sorry, we've got just one more question here. No, it's just a thank you for the invite. So I'll sign off for now. Thank you everyone for participating, and I hope the rest of your day goes well. Thank you.